Welcome to Omega Bio-Edutainment Hub and BioNexus,
where science meets curiosity,
where minds ignite.
Where future biotech leaders are made.
Join us. Learn, explore, and transform the world through biology and innovation.
Omega Bio-Edutainment Hub, making science make sense.
Tap subscribe and power up your mind.
New science videos weekly.
Good morning, everyone. We have come to another insightful session that is being hosted by Omega Bio-Edutainment as well as BioNexus, where we talk about innovation and educational transformation, and we bring it into live experience. I am Adeoti Olatunde Michael, who is going to be your facilitator today and also guide you through the fascinating journey of microbial world that powers our planet. Don't forget, this is one of the educational series at Omega Bio-Edutainment, where we are passionate about how our food is being broken down by invisible agents, which is called microorganism or microbes, through various processes of catabolic as well as anabolic reaction. So in today's lecture, we are going to look at the following. We are going to see how microorganisms, microbes, how do they eat? What do they eat? What are their mode of nutrition? So then we will cap it up with a kind of application. How applicable is knowing the nutrition in microorganisms. So we'll talk about the application in food industry, which is by through fermentation. We'll look at biotechnology and medicine. Then we'll also talk about environmental sustainability and even how the catabolic reaction is very relevant to various feed in the area of pathogen, immunology, as well as this. So without wasting our time, let us just begin our adventurous journey. So today, I am going to take you through introduction into microbial nutrition. After that, we are going to talk about how microorganisms obtain their food, that is their nutritional type. Thirdly, we are going to look at microbial energy generation, that is a catabolic reaction, where we are going to talk about that. Then we'll move on into microbial biosynthesis, which is anabolism. After that, we will look at how can we integrate both catabolic and anabolic reaction together, that is metabolic network. Then we will also look at what are the main points of this lecture. So at the end of this study, at the end of this lecture, viewers should be able to know more about what are the types of nutrition that we have in microorganisms, how do they obtain their food. We want to, at the end of the day, they should be able to differentiate between anabolic reaction and catabolic reaction as well. So please, let's go on. Now, microorganisms, how do they eat? Understanding how microorganisms eat is very vital into understanding various life processes. That life will never continue or it will never be if microorganisms are not involved in our day-to-day activities. Just like we have it on the screen, we can see how larger molecules, how they can be catabolically broken down into small molecules, which is going to lead to energy generation. And also the reversible point of it is how small molecules will come together in form of a building up into larger molecule in the presence of energy. So Microorganisms, although they are very visible, but they are very invisible to naked eye, they have very fascinating ways of obtaining their nutrients. So just like human beings as well, that also require energy in order for them to be able to perform various essential functions, which include growth, reproduction, and repair. Now, the next question should be, why do microorganisms need nutrients? What do they need that nutrient for? They also need it for energy generation. For example, in terms of they use it to power cellular activities like movement, like synthesis, growth, and reproduction, and some other things. Then they also need it for building block. That is to produce macromolecules like protein, lipids, and DNA. We know how important these three micromolecules are: protein, lipid, DNA. DNA is under nucleic acid, and that is the informational molecule that we'll talk about. So that means if energy is not available to them, if they are not involved in eating, so that means at the end of the day it might be too difficult for them to be able to produce even this. Then the third aspect of it is for regulation, that is to maintain cellular body temperature and do some other things like that. So majorly the major nutrients type that they need include, we will divide it into two. The nutritional type is micromolecules and macromolecules. So examples of macromolecules are carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur. And all these macromolecules will function as require in large amounts for structure and energy generation. So then all these macromolecules, uh, another name for macromolecules is we call them also trace nutrients because they are required in very small quantity. So examples of that is iron, manganese, zinc, copper, and so on. So all these will act as cofactors in an electron transport system. That is why this. So now all these are very important. The next question is how microorganisms obtain their food. So the first one is that how do they obtain their energy? So their energy can be in form of can come directly from the sun. That is because they are related. That is photoautotrophic or photoheterotrophic. So or it can come from chemicals. That is when we call them chemoautotrophs and chemoheterotrophs. So when we talk of energy source, it's either from light or from chemicals. And when we now talk of a carbon source, that means they obtain their carbon source from CO2, that is a carbon monoxide, or other organic uh, molecules like carbohydrates, lipid, fat, and protein. So, and a case study under this is a case of chemoautotrophs in nature. An example of this is nitrifying bacteria, which they oxidize ammonia to produce nitrate, thereby releasing energy that is used to fix their carbon dioxide. And this is very vital. This organism, because they are chemoautotroph, that means chemoautotroph. If you look at the table we have on the screen, you will see that chemoautotrophs are those ones that obtain their carbon source from CO2 and their source of energy from chemicals. And we have given example like a nitrosomonas, that is the nitrifying bacteria, and chemicals as well, those ones that are heterotroph. Chemo is from chemicals, and heterotroph means that they will get their CO2 source from diverse sources. So that is why you call them chemoheterotrophs. An example of that is Escherichia coli. Now, if we look at what we have here, we can see that how microbial energy go in generation of their catabolic products. So, what is catabolism? What do we mean by catabolism? This is a process by which microorganisms break down molecules, especially carbon dioxide, carbohydrates, fat, and protein. So, and when we look at what we have on the board, on the screen, we'll see that we have protein. Protein will be broken down in the presence of proteases into polypeptide, peptone. Then, in the presence of that, we have peptidase, amino acid, through transamination reaction, and that one is going to link up with a Krebs cycle. And if we look at the catabolic generation of acetyl CoA or pyruvic acid from carbohydrates by some of these bacteria, that is going to take us into going straight into glycolytic reaction, and that is going to eventually terminate at acetyl CoA, where you have a Krebs cycle, and the electron transport system change is going to also come in. And having lipid, protein, carbohydrate, and lipid, these are the three major macromolecules that are apart from the informational molecules. So lipid is going to, in the presence of lipase, is going to is going to oxidize into fatty acid. Then under beta oxidation is going to also produce acetyl CoA, and thereby entering through Krebs cycle. So what we can say so far is just that energy is being stored in form of ATP in microorganisms. So, and catabolic reaction are hexagonic one, that is those one that releases energy. So, because that is the only source at which they produce CO2, water, lactic acid, fermentation, and ethanol. So, the other major catabolic pathway are we have glycolytic reaction, which is the enzymatic breakdown of glucose into pyruvic acid. And for example, we have a case study of E. coli under anaerobic condition. So they are going to utilize and undergo glycolysis. Then the other example is a fermentation. This is uh, when you convert the when you break down carbohydrates in the presence of some enzyme and you produce lactic acid and ethanol at the end of the day. And we have a lot of examples for that, like our normal yeast. That one is going to undergo what is called alcoholic fermentation. And we have our example like lactobacillus. All these are very important in yogurt production and dairy product. So uh, this one will always convert acetyl CoA into fermentation, that is ethanol. So then the third example is in respiration. Don't forget that respiration can either be aerobic or anaerobic. If they are aerobic, that means the final ATP that will be produced from aerobic is going to be between 36 and 39 ATP. So microorganisms solely depend on undergoing aerobic respiration in order to be able to produce their ATP, to generate their ATP. Then microbial biosynthesis, that is anabolism. So anabolism is a process of building up molecules which also require ATP, and reducing power, which is NADPH. So the opposite of catabolic reaction, which is more of hexagonic, is endagonic, which means that instead of energy to be released, the energy is being consumed instead. And this anabolic reaction is very, very important in growth and reproduction, as well as cellular repair, synthesis of enzymes like toxin and virulence factors. And we can see example of this, a case study of this is biofilm generation by Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So This one is a anabolic reaction, an anabolic pathway whereby this microorganism will convert polysaccharide via anabolic pathway into forming biofilm. And this biofilm, why do they put on produce biofilm? So as to protect microorganisms from antibiotics and some uh, major hazard to their cells. So invariably, both when we now consider both anabolic and catabolic process, we just see that one is the opposite of the other. So catabolic and anabolism, they are interconnected. When we have catabolic producing enough of ATP plus some other building block, that is other small molecules, anabolic uses them to produce and synthesize new cell. So we can see this that anabolic process is example of that is a Krebs cycle, just like we have mentioned the other time. So what are the industrial and clinical importance of anabolic and catabolic process? Number one, it is this is used in fermentation industries. Just like I mentioned that example of that is yeast in alcohol production, as well as lactic acid bacteria in dairy product. Then the second uses of anabolic process is antibiotic production. Antibiotic production, example of this is streptomycin, which naturally produce uh, antibiotics against some microorganisms. So then the fourth one is in bioremediation. Example of this is pseudomonas, which is being used to degrade oil. To degrade oil, whenever there is oil spillage, pseudomonas can be mobilized to that site, and before you know it, pseudomonas is going to enzymatically convert this into a non-oil spill so that the environment can be safe again. So that is why they call it a bioremediation. Then they are also very useful in pathogenesis. Pathogenesis is some set of processes whereby microorganism uses in causing infection in their host. So bacteria rely on metabolism for survival in host as well as in tissue. And example of this is uh, ion scavenging by Staphylococcus aureus. So this is very, very important. And lastly, you see that microbial metabolism, either anabolic reaction or catabolic reaction, is the driving force behind life at microscopic level. Because when we talk of catabolism, that is the breaking down of food, thereby releasing energy that is being used to power the cell. Whereas anabolism will build up cell structure to ensure there is growth, reproduction, and survival. And don't forget that we all have also mentioned that understanding microbial nutrition and metabolism is very useful for us because it's going to help us to understand disease control, how to control some diseases. We also use it in biotechnology, environmental protection, and the food industry. So, microorganisms may be very small, but they are very, very organized. They may be very small, but their metabolism is the one that drive very big processes on Earth. So, thank you.